I've just started the recording. Okay, so I'm going to get started because it is now 10 past 12, and I'm hoping that you all have lots of questions as we go through this story. So I just wanted to say right from the beginning, I'm very pleased to be sharing our story with all of you today, and thanks for joining. And I'm hoping that this will be an interactive discussion, and my hope is just to kind of share our lessons and the work that we've done, and maybe that will help you if you're interested in implementing something like this at your own college. First off, and I'm going to try this because we don't have Collaborate at Fleming College, and I have been in sessions where we've been encouraged to write on the slide. And so to get us started, I just wanted us to make sure we all understood what we mean by domain of one's own. So if you're feeling brave and want to select a pen or a text box, you can write your definition of what a domain of one's own is. So don't be shy. Or you can always chime in verbally if you want.
Alana?
Yeah?
Can you, okay. It doesn't look like the slide's up there, but you haven't enabled the features for us to actually write on it.
Oh, I'm sorry. And how do I enable the features?
I think it's your session settings.
Okay.
So if you go into the session settings, there might be
I got it.
Okay.
Yes.
There we go.
Thank
okay.
You. Thank you for that.
And now I'm not sure what I'm going to write. I'll turn my mic back off.
Okay. Does anyone want to chime in with their voice of what you understand to be domain of one's own? Yeah, so some good answers already on the slide. It is an online space, and it's your own, obviously enough, your own, yes, personal online space. And so you own the content that goes on the online space or website. I love the idea of a personal learning environment as well. And so while it has it doesn't seem to have or you don't immediately recognize it as a technological solution, but it is personal and it is a digital space. And so this is awesome. I'm glad this worked. And so thank you again for prompting me to check the settings. This is great, guys. Does anyone have one last thing to add here? And this will be saved as part of the presentation. So for all of these reasons, we decided to go down the road of implementing a domain of one's own at Fleming College. And so our story sort of starts with 3 events happening. And so this project got traction because these 3 things were aligning. First was that there was a redesign of our core communication courses. A variety of communication courses were being amalgamated to be a first semester and a second semester communication course that would all first year or all incoming students would take, or all diploma students would take. And so those courses are Communication 1 and Communication 2. And these core courses were being redesigned for a specific purpose. Also, our college was moving away from allowing the hosting of personal and educational web pages. And so I think a lot of the colleges made use of sort of a network option called htdocs. And from there, you could create a website that included your username. And so you could host your own site and resources and have it available on the Fleming network. But that was soon to be going away. And the last thing was that in the last 5 or so years, we've really focused on student applied projects, and a lot of them require a digital or a web presence. And so these 3 things meant that we were poised, ready to look at something different, and we started going down the road of domain of one's own. Any questions? So please, as you have questions, just please chime in, okay? So starting off with our COM 201 and 202 course, group of faculty. So these are huge courses. So up to 1,500 students in the semester. In a September semester are taking these courses, and so there's lots of faculty interacting with these students, and there is a computer lab associated with the delivery of these communication courses. And so these 2 courses came together from about 10 different communication courses to refocus on the students' practice of writing for an audience, and participating in discourse communities. And student blogging was right at the center of this redesign. I've included some of the research that was used during this redesign because I think it might be helpful in terms of setting the stage for this type of conversations to happen at the college level. Terry Green, my colleague, as many of you know, has a podcast that runs on Voice Ed Radio called Getting Air, and he interviewed one faculty in regards to why redesign and what effect the redesign has had on the students and the course. And so it's a really good listen. So I've included that link to that podcast to this presentation. So that kind of sets you up for why we needed to look at a platform that would support the student blogging portion of the communications courses. And that was a tall order. We were also implementing the use of e-portfolios at the campus, at the college, and we had decided to go on with the option of students creating their own digital space, as opposed to using the D2L portfolio tool, which keeps the portfolio within the learning management system. So up until 2017, we were looking at students creating their own spaces with whatever tool they were interested in. So we saw a lot of use of the free WordPress site, as well as Wix and other web page tools that are available for the masses. So this was a very collaborative effort. It was 3 different teams coming together, but just one person from each team. So it was a mighty group of 3 or 4 people. LDS is the team that I'm on. It's the Learning Design and Support team. IT is our Information Technology group. And of course, we had to include purchasing because we were going to go look for a hosting source that would meet our needs. And those three folks coming together really made this come together and make sure that all the supports were readily in place. When you have access to these slides, any of these links are available to you. So I have put a link to our initial project plan that's been constantly updated, and you'll find that it's a Google Doc, as most of our documents are, so that the team could be working on it simultaneously or adding to it with the aspects they needed to. We decided to reach out, Reclaim Hosting, and a lot of you may know their story. They came, I guess, onto the scene in about 2015 when a lot of us saw oucreate.edu website, where it was the University of Oklahoma that was providing hosting of websites for all of their students and $12 domains. And so this was a wonderful example of hosting and really putting this domain of one's own on the map. And Reclaim Hosting was born out of that, and it was part of the organization, and they've since created their Reclaim Hosting that a lot of us know of, but I believe we're still the first college in Canada that is using their hosting services for a multi-site WordPress site as well as a domain of one's own. And I'll go into a little bit about that a little bit later. But it's a really interesting story, and so I've provided a link to how they came to be. We also we needed a host. We needed to have single sign-on access for our students and faculty so that it was easy to use and easy to access, as well as easy to track. When it's harder to track when usernames are not real names, so this way it truly looks like a Fleming solution, because it is a Fleming solution, and the students are using their college credentials to log in, as well as the faculty. Purchasing was super important in terms of letting us focus on pursuing a hosting solution with Reclaim. They helped us work on a sole source procurement, and we used an ACAN solution to indicate that we were going to award a contract without going out to tender, but this allowed anyone who thought they could provide the same type of service to make a pitch if they could meet all of our criteria. So this allowed us to sign on with a hosting solution with Reclaim, which was very exciting. And without the purchasing department helping us with that, the process would have taken a lot longer. I just want to pause because I am talking a lot, and I just wanted to see if there were any questions at this point in the show. Hi there.
It's Trish
from
Loyalist.
Hello.
You just mentioned with the purchasing, you said it would have taken a lot longer process. How long was your process from start to finish?
I'm
not sure if you said that and I missed it.
No, that's a very good question. We started really working on this just before Christmas of 2017, so the end of the year 2017, and we launched the multi-site WordPress for our comm courses that spring.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So because we had been in discussions with purchasing all along the way. And our IT manager that we were working with really understood what was required for the hosting, and was thoroughly impressed with what Reclaim Hosting was able to provide us and the cost associated with it.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Anyone else have a question or a clarification? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
We have a question at Algonquin.
Sure.
The question is, after graduation, can the students hang on to those domains?
Great question. So students have access to our network for 6 months after graduation, but there is a loophole in that. If they sign on every 6 months, they keep their access to the Fleming network. And I think that loophole is in a lot of organizations, but they're also able to export their work and host it on their own domain once they're finished college and launching themselves. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thanks.
Okay. Oh, I skipped a step here. So just to give you a look at our multi-site WordPress. So I've been talking about the fact that we've gone on a domain of one's own journey. And with working with Reclaim Hosting and them knowing what our use, our ask really was, they came up with the solution of, if you're going to mostly use WordPress, you might as well start with a multi-site WordPress, which is one WordPress installation that allows you to host multiple sites. It's a cheaper option, and it really met the need for our use of ePortfolios and our communication courses. So we really appreciated that sort of suggestion. And then our real domain of one's own, so where you've got choice, is associated with our applied projects and their specific needs. So we always refer to the bulk of our work as the multi-site WordPress. And so that's something that it's nice to be aware of when you go into this sort of a project, to know that there are options within the option. And we really appreciate the expertise that Reclaim was giving. So in the 2 years since we started, we have, here's our stats. To us, those are awesome stats. We can't believe the amount of sites and users that are making use of our WordPress, multi-site WordPress, and they're keeping them over their time at the college. What do you guys think of those stats? We are a medium-sized college.
I was actually just going to ask that question, what your full-time was. So yeah.
Yeah, no, so we are medium-sized, and because the students use them in for usually 2 semesters, but we're also seeing pickup in some very interesting areas. So other than the communication courses, some of our post-grad programs are really making use of our WordPress sites. The interesting one is our sustainable agriculture program. They use them with their co-op partners. Yeah, and I like Stephen's comment where it is really good engagement. I just want to go back to their use in the communication courses. So it's with the redesign of those courses and the intention of really anchoring the learning in the form of a student blog. They understood, the design team understood that also required a certain level of support that would be available from the faculty. And that's, I don't know about your institutions, but that doesn't happen very often, where it's a faculty ask and it's faculty led, and the support is coming in the classroom. And that just was amazing to us, and that led to the success of these sorts of stats. So they have a 1-hour lab associated with the courses, and that's where the students initially set up their WordPress site. They have a standard set of instructions that they walk through the students, and those that feel comfortable are able to do it on their own. Attendance is not taken at these labs, but even in week 11, where we are right now, there is still good attendance in those labs because they're able to do the writing and get verbal feedback as well as commentary feedback and reviews from each other. So that's a good indication that the students value the time in lab with their instructors. The purpose of the blog writing for the communication course is that writing practice. You can't get good at writing, or you may think you're not good at writing, but with practice, you're able to really gain confidence with your writing skills. There's also the iterative feedback loop and peer feedback as well. They're also writing for an audience, and that's their peers, but also external, which helps them focus in ways that they wouldn't be focusing on if this was an essay they were writing just to be submitted to a Dropbox. So they seem to have more ownership. They definitely own the writing, and they own the platform that it's being hosted on. Any questions? So Paula's asking, does each student control who can access their site? Yes, that is part of the initial setup with their WordPress site. Unless they make it public facing, at the very most, if they want a big external audience, they can limit it to just Fleming College users, but they can make it open to the public, or they can make it private. There has to be a certain level of openness for the student, because the faculty and fellow students have to be able to comment on their work and provide feedback. I'm just looking at some of the other questions, but I think I've caught up on most of them. Does anyone want to chime in with a question? Okay, so I'm going to keep going on. So now on to the true domain of one's own, and that's in the form of applied projects. And so I provided a couple of examples of applied projects that would require web applications to work with the sponsor or partner in order to complete the work of the applied project. And so WordPress alone is not enough. And so this is where domain of one's own came in. And so the students are creating their domain and picking the applications they'll be using to meet the needs of the applied project. These projects stay in our domain and can be worked on in future years with this sort of setup. As well, we will host a student project that a sponsor has asked for in our site for at least 1 year until the sponsor is able or is comfortable hosting their own, if that's part of the applied project. We're able to track what's being done. We're able to add on to what's being done or take a project to the next level in future project years. Our former solution was a bulk, so I think they have 20 domains available to them from GoDaddy, and they the tech who was looking after, the technologist who was looking after the applied projects would have to cycle through them every year, so they would be losing work as they had to cycle through. So they'd have to determine, okay, what project got so far, and they got what they wanted out of it, but we can reuse that domain on GoDaddy. It was hard to track, it was complicated, and there wasn't that kind of transition plan for the project sponsor. So domain of one's own, and we only have a package with 500 licenses. We see that that's going to meet our needs for at least a year, if not more. And again, that was on the advice of Reclaim Hosting. That was the smallest amount that they provision, and it's very cost effective. And we'll be using the domain of one's own for some projects as well. So I just want to show you how similar phase 2 is in look and feel for the students. And this is all set up by Reclaim. And this is sort of the front-facing and access to dashboards for the students who are making use of web applications other than WordPress. WordPress can be part of it, but anyone who's just looking for a WordPress option will be, it'll be strongly suggested that they go to the Multisite. It's much easier to set up from the Multisite. Sorry, so good question, Paula. You've got lots of good questions. Those are 500 sites for domain of one's own. So we've created some support documents for our students because they need to, so that it's a lot to wrap their head around, and the students who make the most use of the domains are our wireless students. They're developing wireless applications and solutions for their sponsors, and so they're supported through the use of the domains, where they're used to going in, selecting a name, and then working on the back end in the form of a cPanel and determining what the project needs, and walking the sponsor through the work that they're doing. And so we have a how to use Fleming domains to get them started, but we also have a list of what all the applications are, almost like a menu before they go into domains. If they just want to see what applications are there, and if they're unfamiliar with a certain application, they can start to do some research on what they can do with it. So that lives outside of the domains, but the Installatron and the cPanel provide a lot of the same information. So between the two documents, we feel that students will be well supported, as well as they have support from our information technology team, our team, and they have a program technologist that assists them with this as well. So we still have quite a bit of time, and I have a few links open, but I'm just wondering where you'd like to go now with this presentation. And if there's anything that I wasn't clear enough about, please just let me know.
Anna,
Mm-hmm.
we were wondering if you know of other colleges or universities that are doing this domain of one's own initiative.
So we don't know of any in Canada. We know that there's pockets of activity. eCampus was giving Reclaim domains, Reclaim hosted domains to some of the participants that took part in, oh, the word's escaping me, their professional development program. But that's the only people we know.
Okay. I have another quick question. It's maybe more of a confirmation.
Mm-hmm.
So the cost, the $12 per student, is that cost borne by the student, or does it get picked up by the program?
Yeah, sorry, that was part of the initial Reclaim hosting story, and so it isn't much more money than that now. And our students can either go with Reclaim, but they're not required, or they can go with Bluehost or GoDaddy or whomever they want, should they want to take their domain with them. But that $12 cost was just part of that initial story out of Oklahoma University.
So then the students are paying for their own domain
When they leave. Not while they're with us. Yeah.
So that's what I'm wondering about. So who absorbs the cost of the initial hosting?
We do. The college does. And so currently, and it's again, it's not super expensive. It's $6,000. Sorry, I'm gonna get my actual stats here. It is to run our domains, the 500 licenses. It's $6,000 a year, and for our WordPress multi-site, it is $4,000 a year.
Thanks.
Oh yeah, thanks, Jess. It was Ontario Extend. I don't know why I blanked on that. And so some of the links that I will share, show you an example of DoO. What I'll do, just because my my access isn't very good, I can't run a video. What I'm going to do is I'll show you, and I'll just end my presentation. I will show you what we provide the students in terms of support. So I'm going to share a screen here. So are you guys able to see that okay? Perfect. Okay, thank you. So this is our how-to guide for the students. Oh, sorry, I've got to scroll on the other side. It is single sign-on, so like the multi-site WordPress, they're able to log in with their Fleming credentials, and that's how they're tracked. So they're first asked for choose your domain. And we've provided an example here in terms of what it could look like. The tech who will be working with our applied projects, I'm sure he will make sure that they use the project name or the sponsor or an appropriate title for the domain that they're working on for the sponsor. And then this is what you start to see when you get into the back end. So this is referred to as that they're working in the cPanel, and they're able to view the different applications that are available to them. So we're looking at web applications. So WordPress is probably the #1 application that's most people use, but there are also e-commerce applications, portal applications, oh, so many. It's hard to, you can do almost anything imaginable. I was hoping to bring up another link there. Image repositories, yeah, lots of different things. The single sign-on is directed through our login with Shibboleth. It's a word I've started to enjoy saying out loud, but I don't feel confident in what it means. I just know that it's a single sign-on proprietary thing. And so they're able to log in with those credentials. That's what allows them to log in with our credentials. And then when a student decides what applications they want, oh, that's great. So Jess just let us know that eCampus is holding a domain camp that's targeted just to educators. So that's awesome. Oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome. Again, you just go through the installatron to install an application on your domain and start making use of it. So again, here's some of the content management tools that are available for the students to use, and you may see a lot of familiar names here, like Drupal and Joomla, as well as some other ones here. So it kind of gives you an idea of all the applications, and these are open source applications that are available to students, including content management systems like Moodle, as well as other options available to the students. So does this help kind of give you an idea of what's involved with domains of one own? I have to tell you, it feels like we've come a long way in a very short period of time, and it's gone off more or less without a hitch. Yes, we have received some student feedback, and what we've done in terms of using that feedback is really streamlined or perfected the how-to guide, especially for the setup of their WordPress site and how they will be using it in their COM courses and for e-portfolio purposes. Our library offers workshops in terms of working directly either with a small group or one-on-one with the setup of their WordPress sites or e-portfolios. And they, as I said, have that in-class time to work on their writing and getting support from their peers and their teacher. I'm just going to go back over to the chat. So Multisite WordPress is available to all students and staff. So we'll definitely be growing the use of that. We're going to, we just launched the Domain of One's Own, and we'll scale up as necessary. We're not sure. We know that we have an audience with the applied projects and some other projects, but we're not sure how quick this will grow. It certainly won't grow like the WordPress multi-site, but we're interested in seeing what students will be using this for and how they find the experience. Well, Jess, if you listen to Terry's podcast, you get a feel for some of the student feedback, especially in terms of the ownership of the work and the seriousness they put into writing about things they're passionate about. Anyone else want to ask a question? I see folks are leaving the session, so I'm assuming lunchtime is winding down. I am happy to continue the conversation in email or by phone at any point. If you're thinking about starting along this journey, the advice of the multi-site WordPress from Reclaim was really, I think that was a real game changer for us, and to use that term that's used so much, because that really gave us a cost-effective solution, especially for our COM courses and the e-portfolio. Yeah, Stephen, students are able to put anything on their site because it is their own. We don't go in and have a look very often, but we do find that as we're working with students, they like to share what they've been doing. Oh, you're welcome. It's been a very interesting project for sure. So thanks for the kudos and feedback on the session. If you, I have my information in the slide deck. I'll send it to Gina to make available, and there will be a recording of this presentation available. Jess, I really like being called a pioneer. If you could see the video, you'd see that absolutely I've been here long enough to wear that. But we were so inspired when we hit upon a solution that has more affordances for us than setbacks, and so. This one really seemed the timing was right for us. There was appetite here to support it, and it was based in pedagogy and the focus on digital literacy skills. So we feel like it was everything coming together at the right time. Absolutely, so authentic. Even this project felt authentic because we were rolling up our sleeves and digging in and trying to figure out a lot of stuff that we hadn't had to before because the network looked after all of that. So last call for questions or comments. I enjoyed sharing a little bit of our story. There's a lot more information, and when you dig into the links when you can, you'll really see what our focus was and intention. Yeah, Trisha, I'll see you at TESS for sure. Okay, guys, I hope you have a pleasant rest of your day. And thank you very much for attending the show. I appreciated the questions and the comments. All right, I'm going to end the recording now. Thank you, guys.